Have you ever wondered how a poor, hungry boy, abandoned in the middle of nowhere, became the ruler of the largest land empire the world has ever seen? How did one man make entire kingdoms tremble with fear? How did his armies conquer lands stretching thousands of miles across Asia and Europe? Some people remember him as a monster. Others remember him as a genius. But no matter how history judges him, one thing is certain: the world was never the same after Genghis Khan. This is the story of the man who rose from nothing and changed history forever. Long before the name Genghis Khan became famous, he was simply a boy named Temujin. He was born around the year 1162 in the vast grasslands of Mongolia. At the time, Mongolia was a harsh and dangerous place. There were no large cities, no powerful central government, no safe roads, only endless grasslands, freezing winters, and rival tribes fighting for survival. Life was tough. Families moved constantly with their animals. Food could be difficult to find. A single mistake could mean death. From the moment a child was born, survival was the first lesson. Temujin's father was a tribal leader named Yesugei. He was respected by his people and feared by his enemies. When Temujin was still young, his father took him on a journey to arrange his future marriage. This was a common tradition among the Mongol tribes. Everything seemed normal, but during the journey home, disaster struck. Yesugei stopped to share a meal with a rival tribe. The rivals recognized him. They secretly poisoned his food. A few days later, he died. Temujin was only a child. His father was gone. His family's protection disappeared overnight. Things became even worse. After Yesugei's death, his followers abandoned the family. The tribe no longer wanted to support a widow and her children. Temujin's mother suddenly found herself alone with several children and almost no resources. The family was cast out. No protection, no allies, no power, only hunger. The years that followed were brutal. The family survived by gathering roots, catching fish, and hunting small animals. Sometimes they barely had enough food to stay alive. Winter was especially cruel. Cold winds swept across the grasslands. Many nights were spent wondering if they would survive until morning. Temujin watched his mother struggle every day. He saw what happened to weak people in a world ruled by strength. Those memories never left him. As Temujin grew older, he became tougher. He learned how to ride horses. He learned how to hunt. He learned how to fight. Most importantly, he learned that trust could be dangerous. One day, conflict broke out inside the family. Food was scarce. Tension was high. A dispute between Temujin and his older half-brother became violent. The argument ended with Temujin killing him. It was a shocking moment. Even at a young age, Temujin showed a willingness to do whatever was necessary to survive. Life continued to test him. Not long afterward, members of a rival tribe captured him. Temujin became a prisoner. A wooden collar was locked around his neck. He was treated like property. For many people, this would have been the end. But Temujin refused to accept defeat. He watched. He waited. He looked for an opportunity. Then one night, he escaped. Using darkness as cover, he fled from his captors. According to stories passed down through history, a sympathetic family helped hide him from those searching for him. Eventually, he gained his freedom. This experience changed him forever. He learned that survival required patience. It required courage, and sometimes it required taking enormous risks. As the years passed, Temujin slowly began building relationships with powerful allies. One of the most important was a man named Jamukha. The two became close friends. They swore loyalty to each other. For a time it seemed they would rise together. But ambition has destroyed many friendships throughout history, and this friendship would be no different. Temujin also married a young woman named Borte. She would become one of the most important people in his life. But happiness did not last long. Soon after their marriage, a rival tribe attacked. Borte was kidnapped and taken away. Temujin faced a terrible choice: accept defeat or fight. He chose to fight. Gathering allies and warriors, he launched a rescue mission. The operation succeeded. Borte was saved. For Temujin, the victory meant more than recovering his wife. It proved that he could lead men into battle. It proved that people were willing to follow him. It proved that he could win. Slowly, more followers joined him. Some admired his courage. Others saw opportunity. Many were tired of the endless tribal wars. Temujin offered something different. He promised loyalty based on merit instead of family connections. In traditional Mongol society, powerful positions often went to relatives of tribal leaders. Temujin changed that. He promoted people based on skill. If a warrior was talented, he could rise, even if he came from a poor family. This approach attracted many followers. People who had little status suddenly had a chance for a better future. Temujin's influence continued to grow, but growth brought enemies. Among them was his former friend Jamukha. What began as friendship slowly turned into rivalry. Both men wanted power, both wanted followers, both wanted to shape the future of Mongolia. Eventually, conflict became unavoidable. The former friends became enemies. Their supporters prepared for war. Across the grasslands, tribes were forced to choose sides. The struggle for Mongolia had begun, and this was only the beginning of Temujin's rise. The boy who had once been abandoned and starving was now becoming one of the most powerful men on the steppe. But the hardest battles were still ahead, because before Temujin could conquer the world, he first had to conquer Mongolia. Temujin stood at a turning point in his life. He was no longer just a survivor, he was becoming a leader. And now, Mongolia itself was about to be reshaped by fire and blood. The grasslands were divided into many tribes. Each tribe had its own leader. Each leader wanted power, and none of them trusted each other. War was normal. Peace was rare. In this world, Temujin had one idea that changed everything. He believed loyalty should not depend on bloodline. It should depend on ability. This idea sounded simple, but in Mongolia at that time, it was revolutionary. Temujin began building his army, not from noble families, but from skilled fighters, hunters, and outsiders. People who had been ignored by powerful tribes suddenly found a place in his ranks. They became loyal to him, not because of tradition, but because he gave them something no one else did: respect, opportunity, and a chance to rise. His army was different, stronger in discipline, faster in movement, more loyal in spirit. But the other tribes saw him as a threat, a man who broke tradition, a man who gave power to the weak. They could not accept it. Among all rivals, one name stood above the rest: Jamukha, once his closest friend, now his greatest enemy. Jamukha believed in traditional tribal order. Temujin believed in merit and loyalty. Two visions, one future. War became inevitable. The two armies clashed across the open steppe. Horsemen charged across the grasslands like storms. Arrows filled the sky. Dust covered the sun. The battles were fast and brutal. There were no safe places. only survival or death. Temujin studied his enemies carefully. He did not fight with emotion. He fought with strategy. He used speed. He used surprise. He used fear. Bit by bit, he began to win. Tribes that once stood against him started to fall. Some surrendered. Some were destroyed. Some joined him after defeat. His army grew stronger after every battle, not weaker. This was one of his greatest strengths. Every victory made him more powerful, but also more feared. Stories of his battles spread across Mongolia. People began to whisper his name. Some called him a savior. Others called him a destroyer. But everyone agreed on one thing: he could not be ignored. The final confrontation with Jamukha came after years of conflict. The battle was fierce, but Temujin's forces had become more disciplined, more organized, more united. Jamukha was defeated, but Temujin did something unexpected. Instead of killing him, he spared him. This shocked many of his followers, but Temujin understood something important. Fear could build an empire, but loyalty would keep it alive. Jamukha was later executed by his own allies. The rivalry was over. But Mongolia was still not united. Many tribes remained independent. Many leaders still resisted. Temujin continued his campaign. One by one, tribes were absorbed into his growing power. He rewarded loyalty. He punished betrayal. And he made it clear: resistance would not be tolerated. By the early 1200s, Temujin had become the most powerful leader in Mongolia. There was no one left who could challenge him. To solve the constant conflict between tribes, a great meeting was called. All major tribal leaders gathered. It was a moment that would change history forever. In the year 1206, on the open Mongolian steppe, the leaders declared Temujin as the supreme ruler of all tribes. He was given a new title, a title that would echo through history: Genghis Khan. It meant something like universal ruler, but the meaning was deeper than words. It meant he now controlled all Mongols, all armies, all tribes, all loyalty. But for Genghis Khan, this was not the end. It was the beginning. Because now he had something he never had before: a united people, a single army, and a vision that stretched far beyond Mongolia. He looked outward, beyond the grasslands, beyond the mountains, beyond the known world. And what he saw was opportunity, wealth, weak kingdoms, and empires that were not ready for what was coming. The Mongol Empire was about to be born, and the world would never be the same again. Now, Genghis Khan had something no one had ever controlled before: a fully united Mongol nation, a single army, and complete loyalty. But what he wanted next was not peace. It was expansion. Beyond Mongolia's borders, the world looked very different. There were rich cities, powerful walls, kings who believed they were safe. But Genghis Khan saw something else: weakness hidden behind wealth. He believed that fear and discipline could break anything. So he moved. His first major target was the Jin dynasty in northern China. This was not a small tribe. It was a powerful empire with large cities, strong walls, and trained armies. But the Mongols had something new: speed. They could move faster than any traditional army. They could appear without warning and disappear just as fast. The invasion began like a storm. Mongol horsemen crossed deserts and mountains. They avoided direct, slow battles. Instead, they attacked supply lines. They destroyed communication routes. They isolated cities one by one. Then they struck hard and fast. Cities that believed they were safe suddenly found themselves surrounded. Inside those cities, fear grew quickly. People had never seen enemies like this before. The Mongols did not behave like normal armies. They studied their enemies carefully. They used spies. They learned weaknesses before attacking, and when they struck, they did not hesitate. One by one, fortresses began to fall. But Genghis Khan was not just relying on violence. He was learning. He studied Chinese siege technology. He captured engineers. He forced them to build new weapons for his army. This was something very few leaders in history had done. Instead of rejecting enemy knowledge, he absorbed it and made it stronger. With new tools and strategies, the Mongol army became even more dangerous. The Jin dynasty struggled to respond. Their armies were large, but slow. Their leaders were powerful, but divided. This gave the Mongols a constant advantage. As the war continued, fear spread across northern China. Entire cities surrendered without fighting. They believed resistance meant destruction, and in many cases, they were right. Genghis Khan used fear as a weapon, but also discipline. If a city surrendered quickly, it was often spared. If it resisted, it faced total destruction. This created a powerful message across the region. Surrender meant survival. Resistance meant ruin. Meanwhile, deeper inside the Mongol Empire, something important was happening. Trade routes were becoming safer. Caravans could move more freely. Merchants began traveling across long distances again. This was unexpected, because while the Mongols were known for war, they were also building control over land routes. In some regions, violence brought order, and order brought trade. This combination made the empire stronger. Wealth began flowing through Mongol-controlled regions. Ideas, goods, and technologies moved between East and West. The world was slowly becoming connected in a way it never was before. But Genghis Khan did not stop. After weakening northern China, his attention shifted west, to lands beyond Central Asia. Powerful kingdoms stood there, rich cities like Samarkand, ancient civilizations with long histories. Many rulers believed distance protected them. They were wrong, because the Mongol army was already moving toward them, fast, silent, and unstoppable. What would follow next would shock the entire known world, because Genghis Khan was no longer just conquering tribes. He was about to challenge entire civilizations, and the greatest wave of expansion in history was just beginning. When Genghis Khan turned west, the world changed again. This time, he was not fighting tribes. He was facing ancient kingdoms, rich cities, and empires that had stood for centuries. The first great target in Central Asia was the Khwarezmian Empire. It stretched across Persia and parts of modern-day Central Asia. Its rulers believed they were powerful enough to stop anyone. They made a fatal mistake. They insulted Mongol envoys. They killed merchants sent under protection. For Genghis Khan, this was not just politics, it was betrayal, and betrayal had a price. The war began with silence, then speed, then destruction. Mongol armies moved across deserts faster than anyone thought possible. They attacked cities one by one, not randomly, but carefully, always cutting supply routes first, always isolating targets before striking. The Khwarezmian Empire tried to respond, but it was already too late. Their army was large, but it was scattered. Their leadership was divided. Some cities fought alone. Others surrendered too late. One of the most shocking events of this war was the fall of Samarkand, a city known for wealth and culture. It was surrounded, and after resistance, it fell. What followed was a message that spread across the world. No wall was high enough, no army was safe, no king was untouchable. News of Mongol destruction traveled faster than their horses, and fear began to do their work for them. Many cities surrendered without a fight, not because they believed in the Mongols, but because they feared them. This fear became a weapon more powerful than swords. Inside the Mongol army, discipline was strict. Genghis Khan demanded obedience, but he also rewarded loyalty. Soldiers who served well were promoted, even if they came from humble origins. This system kept the army strong, united, and focused. As the empire expanded, something unexpected happened again. Not all destruction led to collapse. In many regions, trade survived and even grew, because Mongol control made long-distance travel safer than before. Caravans crossed dangerous lands with less fear of bandits. Merchants began to trust the new order. The Silk Road, once fragmented, started to function again. Goods moved from China to the Middle East. Ideas moved with them. The Mongol Empire was becoming more than a war machine. It was becoming a global system. But Genghis Khan did not slow down. He believed expansion was necessary for survival. A larger empire meant more control. More control meant less rebellion, and less rebellion meant stability. So the campaigns continued across rivers, across mountains, across deserts. Entire regions fell under Mongol dominance. Kings were removed, cities were reshaped, power structures collapsed. Yet from the Mongols' perspective, this was not chaos, it was order. A new kind of order built through force. By this stage, the world was beginning to understand something terrifying. This was not just another invasion. This was a transformation of the world itself. And at the center of it stood one man, Genghis Khan, the man who turned the steppe into the center of global power. But even the strongest empires have limits. And even the greatest conquerors have an ending. Soon, Genghis Khan would face his final campaign, a journey that would close the story of a legend, but not the story of his empire. Genghis Khan was no longer young. Years of war had shaped his body. Countless battles had shaped his mind. But his ambition had not faded. If anything, it had grown stronger. Even in his final years, he was still planning new campaigns, still thinking about distant lands, still imagining an empire without limits. His final great campaign turned toward the west again, this time against the Western Xia and remaining Jin resistance. The Mongol army moved once more, fast, relentless, unstoppable. But something was different now. Time was beginning to catch up with their leader. During the campaign, Genghis Khan's health began to weaken. Some say he fell from a horse. Others say he was wounded in battle. Some believe illness slowly took him. No one knows for sure. History keeps the truth hidden. But what is certain is this. In the year 1227, Genghis Khan died. His death happened far from home, in the middle of a military campaign, surrounded by his army. The man who had united the Mongol tribes was gone. Silence fell over the empire. But something unexpected happened next. The empire did not collapse. It expanded. His sons and generals carried forward his vision. They continued the conquests. They pushed deeper into China, into Persia, into Europe. The Mongol Empire became even larger after his death. It stretched farther than any empire before it, from the Pacific Ocean to the edges of Europe. A connected world built through war, strategy, and fear, but also through order, discipline, and organization. Genghis Khan left behind more than destruction. He left behind a system, a military structure that could survive without him, a leadership model based on merit, a communication network that connected continents. For some people, he is remembered as one of history's greatest villains. For others, he is one of its greatest geniuses. But the truth is complex. He destroyed many cities, but he also connected worlds that had never been connected before. He brought terror, but also trade. He erased kingdoms, but also built a foundation for global exchange. Centuries later, his name still echoes across history books, still studied, still debated, still feared, and still respected. Because Genghis Khan was not just a conqueror. He was a force that reshaped the world, a boy who lost everything, who rose from nothing, and who changed the fate of continents. The world before him was divided. The world after him was connected forever, and that is why his story still lives on, not just as history, but as a reminder that one man with vision and determination can change the entire course of human civilization.